This is the Soviet officer who prevented World War III. September 26, 1983. A Soviet bunker outside Moscow. 5 nuclear missiles are heading toward the USSR. The protocol is clear: launch a counter-strike. But one man is about to make a decision that will save 3 billion lives. And his reward? He was almost court-martialed. To understand why this moment mattered, you need to understand just how close the world was to ending in 1983. The Cold War wasn't just cold anymore. 3 weeks earlier, the Soviets had shot down Korean Airlines Flight 007, killing 269 people, including a U.S. congressman. President Reagan called it a massacre and an act of barbarism. Tensions between the superpowers were at their highest since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Both sides had their fingers on the trigger. The Soviet leadership was paranoid, genuinely convinced that NATO was planning a first strike. The Americans had just deployed Pershing II missiles in West Germany, missiles that could reach Moscow in less than 10 minutes. This wasn't a game of chess anymore. This was a game of chicken with 60,000 nuclear warheads. And in the middle of all this, there was Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a politician. He was a 44-year-old engineer who specialized in satellite systems. On the night of September 26, he was the duty officer at Serpukhov 15, a secret bunker that monitored Soviet early warning satellites. His job was simple. If the satellites detected incoming missiles, he would report it up the chain of command. And once he did that, the Soviet Union would launch a full retaliatory strike. Because that was the doctrine. If they're launching at us, we launch everything we have before their missiles hit. Just after midnight, Petrov settled into his shift. It was supposed to be routine. He'd done this hundreds of times. Then at 12:15 a.m. the alarms went off. The computer system, codenamed Oko, lit up. One of the satellites had detected a launch. A single intercontinental ballistic missile, heading from the United States toward the Soviet Union. The bunker erupted. Officers started shouting. The alarm was blaring. On the screen, a single word flashed in red: launch. Protocol was clear. Petrov had to pick up the phone and report the strike to Soviet High Command. Once he did, they would wake up General Secretary Yuri Andropov, and within minutes, Soviet missiles would be in the air. But Petrov hesitated. One missile didn't make sense. If the Americans were launching a first strike, why would they send just one missile? The US strategy was overwhelming force. If they were starting World War III, they'd launch hundreds, maybe thousands of missiles at once. One missile would barely dent Soviet defenses. Then the system lit up again. Now it showed 2 missiles. Then 3. Then 4. Then 5. 5 missiles inbound. The room was screaming at him now. His subordinates were waiting for him to pick up the phone. Every second he delayed, the Soviet Union had less time to respond. Less time to launch their own missiles before the American ones hit. The computer showed a 100% confidence level. This wasn't a glitch. According to the most advanced early warning system in the world, 5 American nuclear missiles were in the air. And Petrov still didn't pick up the phone. What was going through Petrov's mind in those moments? He trusted his gut over the computer. 5 missiles still didn't make strategic sense. He also knew the satellite system was new and had problems. Ground-based radar hadn't confirmed anything yet, but that would take time, and time was the one thing he didn't have. Here's what made this decision even more impossible. Petrov wasn't authorized to make it. He wasn't supposed to evaluate the threat. He was supposed to report it. That was the protocol. That was the system. If he reported the launch and it turned out to be real, he'd be a hero who saved the Soviet Union from a decapitation strike. If he didn't report it and it was real, millions of Soviets would die, and it would be his fault. But if he reported it and it was false, if he triggered World War III over a false alarm, he would be responsible for ending human civilization. 23 minutes passed. The longest 23 minutes in human history. Petrov later said, "I had a funny feeling in my gut. I didn't want to make a mistake. I made a decision and that was it." He reported the alarm as a system malfunction, not an attack, a glitch. The room went quiet. His officers stared at him. He'd just violated protocol. He just bet the survival of the Soviet Union on his gut feeling. And then they waited. If Petrov was wrong, Soviet cities would start disappearing in nuclear fireballs within the next 10 minutes. Moscow, Leningrad, Volgograd, gone. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Then 20. No impacts. The ground-based radar showed nothing. No missiles. No attack. Petrov had been right. It was a false alarm. So what went wrong? It took weeks to figure it out, but eventually Soviet engineers discovered the problem. The satellite had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for the heat signature of missile launches. A perfect alignment of the sun, clouds, and the satellite's position created a false positive. The system that was supposed to protect the Soviet Union had almost destroyed the world. But here's the thing that should terrify you. This wasn't the only close call. There were dozens of near misses during the Cold War. In 1979, a training tape simulating a Soviet attack was accidentally loaded into NORAD computers, and for 6 minutes, US officers thought they were under attack. In 1995, a Norwegian research rocket was nearly mistaken for a nuclear missile. We got lucky. Over and over again we got lucky. You'd think Petrov would be celebrated as a hero, right? The man who saved the world? He wasn't. The Soviet military was embarrassed. The early warning system they'd spent billions on had failed spectacularly. And Petrov had broken protocol by not immediately reporting the alarm. He wasn't court-martialed, but his career was over. He was reassigned to a less sensitive position and he retired early. For years his story remained classified. It wasn't until 1998, 15 years later, that the world learned what Petrov had done. A Russian military newspaper published his story, and suddenly he became an international figure. He received awards from the United Nations. He was honored by peace organizations around the world. But Petrov himself was conflicted about being called a hero. In interviews he was humble, almost dismissive. "I was just doing my job," he said. "I was in the right place at the right time." He died in 2017 at the age of 77. And here's the sad part. His death wasn't even reported until months later. The man who saved 3 billion lives died in relative obscurity. But think about what his decision means. Every person alive today, anyone born after September 26, 1983, exists because Stanislav Petrov trusted his gut over a computer. Your parents, your friends, maybe even you, owe your existence to a Soviet officer who chose to wait 23 minutes before picking up a phone. September 26, 1983 should be a global holiday. It should be the day we remember how close we came to the edge, and how one person's judgment saved everything. But instead, it's just another date that most people have never heard of. Stanislav Petrov didn't want to be a hero. He just didn't want to make a mistake. And because of that, the world didn't end. If you found this story as incredible as I did, let me know in the comments what other forgotten moments in history you want me to cover. And remember, history isn't just about what happened. It's about what almost happened.